It's never done that before, right? Who are you, lady? Get out of my computer. Weird. Rita, you were going to keep working on your novels until, I don't know, one grabs you more than the other?
Yeah, nothing worked out this week, sorry.
That's okay, it happens. Happened to me too. Martha, you were going to print your scene inventory and clear your desk.
Yeah, I printed my scene inventory, and as I went through it, I put notes to myself, things I wanted to work on. So I'm working on my punch list.
Good.
My desk is a mess, though. I did not manage to clear my desk.
I never do that. I always say I'm going to, and then I never do. I hear you. Yana, you were going to work on your submission, getting it in, which you did. Anything else to report?
Not really.
Good. Well, thank you for doing that. And Sajna, you were not here last week. Would you like to report anything about your writing life? I think you're still on mute.
I cannot remember what the last goal was, but hopefully I can pick up from where I left off.
Your last goal was to research, do more research.
Yeah, I didn't really do much of that last week, but hopefully we'll pick up some.
Well, we're glad you're here this week. And so what I've been thinking a lot about lately is like, how well do we know our characters? And not just know them in all the ways that you're supposed to know, like their backstory and their hair color and all that, but like, how deeply do we know our characters? Because I feel like the more deeply we get to know them, the more real they become on the page. So I'm going to do a little bit of work around, the lecture today will be around character development. And those of you who've been with me a really long time, like way back when we first started these classes, might have seen this lesson before, but I feel like you'll always get something new out of it, and we'll do writing workshops. Let me find it. How's about that? It's never where it's supposed to be. That's what I find annoying. There it is. Share. There you are. Okay. So I originally taught this workshop and called it Writing the Perfectly Imperfect Character, because I'm not obsessed, but I'm very interested in characters that are real and flawed and complex and nuanced, and have that complexity of, emotion that we've talked about a lot, where they're not ever just feeling one flat thing, but there's a lot going on underneath the surface. And so let's start by kind of talking about what I think of as the goals of building a character, sort of what we want the reader to get out of reading the experience. And so I am not a huge proponent of building likable characters. What I think we need to build are believable and relatable characters. Which is to say, I think likable to me, likability means different things to different people. So trying to build a likable character is almost impossible, because you don't know how the reader's going to take them. But if you understand them and their motivation, and you can relate to them, hot pickles, then you have a better chance of then you have a better chance of having your cat's butt in your face, of your reader feeling connected to this character and wanting to follow their story, even if they have, trouble. Like, not to single you out, Natanya, but like, was it Mary Elizabeth? Is that her name? Like, she's not what we would necessarily call the likable character at first, but she's complex, and we're curious about how she became the way she is. And I find her interesting. So that's a good example, right? You already got bonus credit, just didn't even know it. So readers want to relate to characters, and that means that they have to be imperfect like we are, right? So I say, you want your characters to have flaws and strengths, goals and desires, pet peeves, frustration, bad breath, acne, and bad hair days, right? So I think I'm probably beating a dead horse here, but I will always say it again, that we don't want our protagonists to be too perfect, too smart, too pretty, too enlightened, right? We need them to have a little bit of wiggle room to grow. And so if you have fallen in love with your characters so much that you're writing them as these perfect people, you want to look for ways to kind of peel that onion back and find out who they are underneath that perfection. I also really am a fan of protagonists that do make mistakes and change their mind and not always behave the same way. I know that we have consistency is necessary, but in lieu of consistency, or in addition to consistency, it's okay for situations to force our characters to act out of character, to lose their temper, things like that, right? So, and of course, the term character flaw is something that I keep meaning to revise. I haven't done it in my presentations, but in my mind I have. I really think of character flaws as survival skills and coping mechanisms. So rather than flaw, which sounds like a negative, I want you to think of your characters as having a coping skill or a survival skill or an adaptation that they've developed that is no longer working for them as well as it once did. Hence, it's a flaw, right? And I want you to see if you can come up with two and if you have multiple characters, you're welcome to pick a couple of them. And think about whether these quote unquote flaws can be transformed into strengths over time, or can they be overcome in some way through the journey that your character takes in the story that you're writing. So I'll just give you a couple minutes. You can even just write the word down, or you can write a description of their quote unquote flaws, survival skills. So let's just take like 3 minutes for this. Okay, wrap up your thought, your sentence. All right. Who would like to share theirs first? Martha, I remember to unmute.
Sure.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Okay, so for Demetrius, he has this sort of generalized aloofness, which I figure is because he had sort of an absent parent. So he has that protective mechanism. And then he also, since he started out in one genre, classical music, and then he switched rather late as a teenager to rock, he has that feeling of being sort of late to the party.
Mm.
And so therefore he's just has that obsession, which is both good and bad.
Mhm. Okay, so aloof and obsessed.
Mhm.
And does the aloofness make him hard to get close to?
Sure. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good. And and also, do you envision, do your characters have that trajectory of change? Do you see them either overcoming it or integrating that flaw?
Yes, definitely some progress to
Good.
varying degrees.
Good, I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Who would like to go next? My silent crew. All right, Natan.
I did Mary Elizabeth and Tuwodi, who seem to have opposite flaws. Mary Elizabeth thinks she's better than other Indians because she's not like all the others. She doesn't do any of the stereotypical
Right.
things. And Tuwodi puts too much pressure on herself to be the perfect Indian. She must have kids. She must follow all the traditions. She must do nothing but hardcore advocacy and judges other Indians who do not.
Right. So they both have a judgmental streak, but from opposite ends of this. And do you envision both of them changing, integrating those flaws? How will those manifest differently?
Yeah, I feel like with Mary Elizabeth, when she comes into herself, she's going to turn that impatience with herself towards judgment to the people who made her feel that way and who encourage other Native people to feel that way about themselves too. And with Tuwodi, I think she's just going to turn. I think somebody at some point is going to give her a lesson about, put the oxygen on yourself first, kind of a thing.
Nice.
And that's going to make her be a little more gentle with herself. So she's going to turn that critical eye on, like, how well am I actually taking care of myself?
Oh, I like that. That's nice. Good. Good work. I like it. All right. Rita.
Just the stuff I'm working on, impatience and judgmental, proud and stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a lot else to say.
No, those are fantastic. And do you envision them being able to, because not all survival skills and flaws go away. It's more like, I think for a lot of characters, they just become aware of them and they try to relate differently. Like, so if you have a lot of pride and stubbornness, you have to start learning to listen to other people, right? Or whatever. So do you have some vision for that in your story?
Oh yeah.
Cat down. He's just persistent beyond belief. Great. I like it, Rita. Sajna?
Yeah, I just wrote this for one of my characters. One of the weaknesses would be being arrogant, and the other one would be obsession with perfection.
Mm.
And I hope I can change that into strength. I mean, obsession with perfection can be changed usually into a strength.
One thing I find helps, and I actually do this for myself as much as for my fictional characters, is having compassion for your characters for how they got to be the way they are. So if so arrogance, for instance, which can be hard to overcome or to see as sympathetic, can you humanize this character and show us what that arrogance is hiding or masking? Because that's usually what it is, right? It's protecting something that they don't want to feel or, haven't learned how to cope with. So having that compassion for your characters will help. And another thing is for them, when you can show them becoming aware of their own flaw. If they are like, oh, wow, yep, I have to own it now. And usually that's through some kind of a painful experience where that very flaw trips them up. Then they become aware. And so the awareness can also be sympathetic. Like, if you're the first one to admit that you're hot-tempered, then people are like, okay, well, at least you know. So that can breed some sympathy. Yana.
I wrote for Arcana, not picking the right battles to fight. So basically being naive to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2, choosing to be what she feels is what other people want. because she's learning by example, and she needs to learn that she herself is her own person and not just the product of the things around her.
That's a good one. There's like huge potential for growth in that kind of a story arc too. I love it. Good work, everybody. All right, so now let's move on to sympathy. Again, not to be confused with likable. What this means is that we understand the motivations and goals of your character. You can even have anti-heroes. And I put this presentation together before this series was on Netflix. This is a book called You by Carolyn Kepnes. Anyone seen that show on? Yeah, it's kind of, he's kind of awful. But in the book, partly because you're in his point of view, you end up sympathizing with him because you understand his justifications and his mental processes. And it's sort of, it's kind of scary by the end. You're like, I thought this guy was, anyways.
That's
So,
the stalker one?
What's that?
Was that the stalker one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We've
Yeah.
seen a few of
I
those.
think the book is more effective than the show in a lot of ways, but because you're inside his head in a different way rather than a voyeur. But what the point is that when we understand why characters are doing what they're doing, we're willing to cut them slack. We're willing to we just more likely to have understanding, sympathy, and care about them. And we see them as human, like, oh yeah, if I had been, locked in a closet all my childhood, I might also be touchy when people, whatever. I'm just making stuff up, but you get, so part of the work of the writer then is how do you convey that information without backstory dumping, right? So, and there's a lot of ways, dialogue with other characters, short little memories, snitches, there's all kinds of ways to let this stuff come through, even their own thought processes. That is just not a big dump of backstory. But what your goal is to make us root for all your characters, no matter what their flaws are. So we have to understand why and how they got the way they were a little bit. And some of that might be a slow burn. We might not get all of that up front, but we will hopefully get enough to keep us interested. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Oh, wait, did I have no. Okay. On this one, because we've talked a lot more about plot and things like that. But another key point that often gets lost, I think, when we're building a character is, so maybe they have interesting flaws and an interesting backstory, but is there a problem driving the story that really makes the story take place? Like, yeah, all this backstory happened to them, but what is that, we've talked about inciting incident. What is that problem that says this story needs to be told now at this particular time in the character's life? That's another thing too, is we often start stories in not quite the right place as we're trying to learn who our characters are and what their problems really are. So this problem has to be significant, right? So from a plot standpoint, it's often known as the call to adventure. I also sometimes call it just the call to change, because adventure suggests all positive, exciting things, and change can be more like things imposed upon the character. But of course, as we've talked about in the past, it needs to force your protagonist to change something in their physical outer life, that they can, in the moment of the story, things will not be the same once this thing comes along. So just real quickly, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one, see if you can write down, what is that problem, that story problem, that inciting incident that sets this story into motion? And, in a lot of stories, there's a little bit of preamble, a little bit of setting the stage for what's to come first, and then the problem is introduced. See if you can identify what that is. It can be a sentence, it can be a paragraph. You stop it. You're being very naughty. When you are. It's not your dinner time yet. What do you think? All right, wrap it up. And let's go around. All right, we'll go backwards this time. Sajna, you want to share yours? Did we lose you, Sajna? Taking a break? All right, I'll come back to you. Yana?
I wrote real. Her problem is that realizing that bad things happen, even in a world filled with magic and wonder. So she's going to see something or see someone be cruel and unjust, and she will have a strange feeling to make it right, to change it. And that is what makes her feel like she has true purpose.
And is it related to people she knows, or is it just a random act of violence or whatever?
People she knows, people she thought she knew.
Good. All right, Sajna, do you want to go now? Sorry, you had someone at your door? All right, you want me to come back to you? Because your sound isn't coming through. Go. All right, I'll come back to you. Martha?
Okay, so staying with Demetrius, which is a side character, I realized his problem really is Alora in the beginning and the whole hold your situation in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized I should have the curse touch him too. So I kind of had a little epiphany right there.
Ooh.
So yeah, I need to give Demetrius more problems.
I love that. Good, I like that a lot. Natani?
Let's see. Tuwodi and Sherry, their issues, they can't get pregnant. Chanel has her horrible periods and with lots of pain. And Mary Elizabeth is seeking herself via self-aggrandized superiority.
Mm. Mm-hmm. I like
now.
it. So, and for each of them, is there like a moment when they understand they can't get pregnant, or like there's the problem, like does it have an event attached to it, or is it more like a
well, like Sherry is the one that I just submitted, so that's her kind of.
She doesn't have a uterus. That's pretty big.
Yeah, and Tuwodi will get to that point when they remove hers. And Mary Elizabeth's problem will both be solved and then be more complex because she'll meet somebody she wants to have a baby with, and then
Got it. Nice.
Yeah.
Good. I can't wait to read more of them. All right, Rita.
I don't really have anything.
Okay, that's fine. Sajna.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just had someone at the door and then I left my phone at the door. um, okay, so the problem that my protagonist is trying to solve, obviously a sense of loss, a desire to learn more about her father, who's a mystery figure, and of course, driven by the need to participate in an internship, which could possibly change her life.
Good. Awesome, everybody. All right, so now another important thing to consider is the sort of secrets and pain that your characters hold. I like to call it what haunts them. And what I think is most effective is if you can show these things in subtle ways, so you don't even necessarily name them right away. This can be information that's doled out over the course of the story, or it can be subtle. It can come through in how they act or behave or think or talk. And sometimes it's more overt, like I'm writing a book and the main character and her sister lost their parents in an accident suddenly. So when they were like 16 and 18. So that haunts them and has shaped the rest of their life. That's pretty specific and it's not a secret. But there are more subtle things that can haunt people. Like my list is kind of silly, but family legacy of trauma or trauma in general. Let's say your character accidentally hit someone on the road one day, when they were young and no one ever found out. Maybe they have a terrible secret that they've been living with. Maybe they had to give a child up for adoption. Maybe they have been living a double life in some way, maybe, whatever it is, and it could be more subtle than that. Maybe it's ancestral, like there was a family story of pain that they've carried with them, or anything that can happen. But I do think it's very important that your character does have some kind of a haunt of some kind, and it doesn't have to be huge, but it should be, I think, partly because none of us really get out of this life thing without something. It's realistic, it's human, and it can be subtle. And so the trick again is to know what that is, but to dribble it out in subtle and slow ways so that it's not just a big dump up front. And it really can come through in how characters think, speak, and act, and what they allow, who they interact with in their lives, the choices they make, the kinds of jobs, geographical locations, and partners they choose. All of that can speak to and tell and give hints at what has happened before. So let's write about one or two things that haunt your character, and ideally, as early on in your story as possible. So it's something that's already present for them.
I'm sorry, do you want another list or do you want this in scene?
You know what? However it comes to you is fine. If you want to write in scene, you can. But otherwise, a list is also fine. Go away. Okay, wrap up your thoughts. All right, who would like to share first? Anyone? Martha?
So Demi's loss of his mother when he was about 5, his father took custody of him. So he looks back on his time with his mother, they lived in a hippie type of commune type of environment. So he looks back on those early memories like a lost Eden.
Mm.
And then also when he had his car accident at the age of 12, where his father was driving, leaving him with a bad limp, which his father teased him about. So there's that a good.
Mm-hmm. So he's haunted physically because
physically and made insecure about it.
Did you say his mother was dead or just?
No, she's just MIA.
Got it. Oh, okay. So, it's interesting. You can think about I'm just using yours because you went first as an example. You can think about ways that wound could show up. Like when someone talks about a great relationship with their mother, he could get really moody. Or when, think about what are ways that secret could, not secret, but that pain can come through that isn't explicitly, he missed his mother in the Eden they lived in, right? So give yourself, I'm sure you already do that, but as an example of how those things can come through. What are the kinds of things that he could react to that when?
And that's why he clings so much to Alora's mom. He's really
yes, that's great. I love that. So he's built like a surrogate mom relationship. Yeah. That's great. All right, who would like to go next? All right, Natani, thank you.
Let's see. Chanel, her ex-husband haunts her and the abuse that he did to her, and she is haunted by that because she knows she chose him because he's just like her father. She does not trust human men at all, but she's a horse woman, so yeah.
Got it.
Trust male horses. Cherry has racist trauma. She's not Black enough. She's not Native enough. She's not white enough. She doesn't fit in anywhere. She doesn't have a safe space other than her own family and, of course, Dwayne. Tuwodi, it's the haunting is the pressure to be the perfect Native in a world that doesn't want her to exist. She's haunted by her obligation to the land and her people. Mary Elizabeth is... hers is being caught doing anything heathenistic and being severely and sadistically punished for it for her own good. Terrified of men because she has been taught to submit and she hasn't been shown any men who won't abuse that power.
One thing you said I really liked, which is that I forget which character already, is haunted by her responsibility and obligation to the land.
To Woden,
and yeah, what I like is that the haunt can be a positive thing. It could be a happy memory or a beautiful thing, but because there's a disconnection. Same with Demetrius, right? Like he had this beautiful time with his mom, and it haunts him because there's been a disconnect or a fracture that makes that thing not either not exist anymore or have pain associated with it. So keep in mind they can be haunted by things that are in and of themselves beautiful, but that they have lost access to. Yana.
I wrote a tiny scene because I have no idea how to list this. So this is for harming someone, I ask. I stare at the little knife Noreen is holding out for me. The hilt is dark wood. It's simple, really. Nothing special. Then why do I want to run away? Yes, Noreen says, watching my eyes flick from her to the knife again. She takes a step forward and I take a quick step back. She raises an eyebrow. We're making a point, she says hesitantly. Softly, a tiny laugh in her eyes. She's holding back, I can tell. Her shoulders are tense, waiting for me to snap, as if I was a wild animal, about to jump or escape down the closest hole. I take a deep breath. Show me again.
I love it. Excellent. And yeah, I was going to ask you a question, but you already said you don't do lists, so it doesn't matter. Awesome work. Sajna?
Yeah, what haunts my characters? The trauma of losing a parent, or rather both parents, when she's young, being powerless, and then eventually having to choose.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Yeah. Being haunted by like, would you make the wrong choice? Each choice could have like a loss associated with it. I like that a lot. That's good. All right, Rita, any luck?
I'm still just stumbling around, but I think what I see in one character is that she sees jobs currently the way women used to see marriages, as stifling and confining, and then sort of sets her on that journey to self-realization in the way that used to be sought in the marriage realm.
Yep. That makes
So
that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So stifled by sort of the norms of a job and searching for something else.
right, conformity,
Yeah.
just this conventionality, all that kind of stuff.
Nice. Good work, everybody. Did I get everyone? Yeah. Okay, let's see what else is in this here presentation, shall we? We're not going to do backstory flashback because we already did that last week. Okay, so now for the fun stuff. We do want to also think about the things that excite and motivate our characters, not only because it helps round out who they are, but there are points in the story where also we need to kind of reward them, or, you know, give the reader a pause from intensity and hopefully give them something happy that they're glad to have, or bring reunion or connection. So, and I have to say, sometimes what haunts your protagonist and what excites or motivates them can be bound together. It could be a loss that they're grieving that they're hoping to reclaim or find something similar. Trauma can also shape what it is that they desire. So they actually might have a false idea of what motivates or excites them based on their own traumas. Like, I'm sorry, Natanya, I keep thinking about Mary Elizabeth. She's in my brain today. She might be believing that certain things make her happy, and then her journey is to discover that actually none of those things have made her happy or satisfied, and she has to find a new path. So things like that. Of course, there's desire. Who and what do they desire? Not only romantically and in a partner sense, but do they have a drive for like a ambition? Are they ambitious for a certain success? Are they a musician trying to achieve a certain level of status or professional success? Do they have dreams and goals that are driving them? So let's think a little bit about our characters, what they are excited by, motivated by, or what they desire. And however you answer that question is fine. Again, a scene is fine, or a list. her up. I had to lock him out, Pickles out of my office. And so he does this thing where he leaps up on the door, scratches, and I took video of it because he's totally embarrassing himself. I wish that he was aware of how, like, I wish I could shame him, you know, but he's shameless. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, this will be our second to last exercise. I have one more. Okay. Should I just keep calling on you all? My reticent people. I love it. Martha, go for it.
Okay. Demi wants to become the next Jimi Hendrix, and he really wants to do it without the help of his father. He wants to step out of his father's shadow, who I have as this mega, star celebrity. And he has what I have called the Julian Lennon syndrome. And he really wants to just protect his friendship with Alora for now. He's not wanting to complicate that and mess it up, although it's going to get complicated and messed up.
Right.
He just wants to keep it steady.
Got it. I like that. Good. So he does yearn for her. But he's trying to be careful with it.
Yeah.
All right. Sasha.
Okay. What motivates my characters? There is a drive to achieve, which is why she goes on the internship, or rather she gets on the train, or plans to get on the train. Completion of the mission, discovery of herself, learning why. Those are the things.
Good. Yeah. Those are all good drives. Natani?
Chanel, her joy is her kids and her horses. She's motivated by her kids and not wanting them to wind up with someone like their father or becoming someone like him.
Mm-hmm.
Tawodi's joy is tradition, and she does a lot of, I think I'm going to do scenes with her, like doing some meditative weaving and stuff. Cherry's joy is Dwayne and her baby sister August. And her motivation is always just to like make a family and keep her family whole. Mary Elizabeth is in the beginning, her joy and motivation is going to be her view of perfection and order until she experiences her first stomp dance, and then she's going to see how ordered and organized the stomp circle and a clan circle actually is. And that's going to feel like good and familiar to her. And I picture her having like this one moment of joy where she, like, we always say laugh like an Indian. It's just like, like you always throw your head back and like dislocate your neck to laugh. So she's going to have one of those moments where she like, and someone's going to point out like, girl, like you just laugh like an Indian. So
I love that.
Like, feel these little moments of like letting go. And
her character is in some ways among the most interesting in terms of her trajectory for change. Like when she becomes who she really is, like I can already tell I'm gonna have goosebumps. It's like it's gonna be that kind of story because she's coming from so far.
Yeah, she's gonna be the biggest change for sure.
Good. Read it.
The character I'm thinking of, her desire is for knowledge and experience. She wants to see everything for herself. And then that's going to take her on the journey to discover that even though she wants to be by herself, she needs a community for support.
Nice. I like that. Yana.
I wrote a scene again.
Yep.
Oops. Easy now, Noreen shrieks from the top of the staircase, watching me try to balance the many books in my hands. I've got it, I pant, though the second I say so, I see the top book ever so slightly sliding off. I hear thumps on stairs, and Noreen's hand comes into view, catching the book before it drops. You sure? She asks me, grinning her grin of victory, walking slowly back, waving the book above her head. Give it back, I gasp as I move forward, and the rest of the books start to slide. And she's right there in front of me again, grabbing half my stack. She laughs as I stare at her in disappointment. I had it, I grumble to her back. Sure you did, she says, looking back to smile at me. Her laugh comes back easy as I pout at her. I sigh happily. I never realized how close we had gotten in the few weeks we've had together. But really, she was something more than just a person I met on the street now. It was something else.
Nice. So there's a relationship connection, whatever that looks like. I'm not saying it's a romantic relationship, but she feels connected to this woman in a way, whereas before she was just, is that the same? Is that the woman of the couple of the man that rescued Arcana? Is that the same? Okay.
Mhm.
Nice. All right. Did I get everybody? Am I missing somebody? All right, great. Knew that. Oh, I know, I was going to say something. It's in the back of my head. Oh, same, just sort of the same advice. Look for ways that you can kind of draw the thread of their desires and ambitions and goals through everything that they do, so that it stays present in the reader's mind. So it's not just like something you throw out at the beginning and then forget about. Try to keep it alive, and then maybe it changes. Maybe the strength of their desires change, maybe the shape of it, and even their desires themselves can change, but try to thread it throughout so that it is somehow like a part of their character. If that makes sense. Okay. The last one I want to do. Yes. Okay. So this is just really more for you a way for you to conceive of the information about your characters. And what I like to think about it is like all the work you do on your character is like, the water in the water table below the tree, right? You don't see it, but it's there feeding the plants and the trees all the time. So the more you know, the more that nuance will come through in the characters, even if you don't explicitly ever say this stuff, but the more you are aware of it, it will translate. So I call this the known unknown. So you don't obviously have the need or the opportunity to tell the reader everything that you know about your characters, but I think the more that you know about them, the deeper they'll get. So there should be one key piece of information, and this could be tied to their haunt, it could be tied to their desires, that you reveal slowly through the course of the story, and it may not be fully realized until the end. Maybe you don't have that much information about your characters yet if they're still new to you. But so here's the question. What do you know about your character that the reader does not and may not until the end? And don't worry about the second question. That's really the main one I want you to think about. So what is something you know that the reader will not know directly? They might pick it up implicitly. They might pick it up through behavior or so. And again, you may not have this. So if you don't, that's okay. See if you have something that you can leave through. Give me just a couple minutes for that. And you can write it in scene if you want. wrap up your thoughts? All right. Rita, would you like to go first?
I'm still pretty useless. I have a migraine, so
You're not used. Oh, I'm sorry. Poor woman. I didn't know that. Oh,
I didn't want to. I still wanted to participate, but I knew I'd be pretty useless with the stuff. But
you can always tell me. So nothing to read? Okay,
no, I'm really just kind of thinking. This is real helpful though.
good. Okay. Martha.
I'll go. Okay. Danny is really insecure about his chops, his musical chops, which is kind of an ironic thing because he was trained classically, and and he doesn't have the rhythm and blues background. So when he's with the rock guys, he's afraid they'll see him as the other still. But eventually he grows into this sort of a neoclassical guitar style, which is one of his growth.
He finds himself.
Yeah, he finds himself
outside
musically.
of the expectations of others. Yeah, that's good. I like that. All right, Natani.
I think the submission I just did for Cherry would be Cherry's. So I just worked on Tawoti. She secretly doesn't want to be a mother. She doesn't even like children, but she tries really hard to get pregnant out of obligation. She also doesn't like her husband because he's not traditional enough and his advocacy has waned. She's going to feel incredibly guilty for feeling relieved that she's been sterilized. And that guilt is what's going to help motivate her to advocate for Native women who do want to have children. And
That's great. I like complexity like that. That just sells a much more real and deep and interesting character. So anytime you can create complexity like that, do it. All right. Yana.
I wrote that she is unsure that she wants to be human, that being human is too hard for someone like her who has responsibility normal humans do not, and the thought that being human would interfere with it, and that she might have to choose to be less human, emotionless, ruthless, etc.
Nice. I like that a lot. Right. Yeah, we always see being human as this like ideal, right? I love that, but not necessarily. All right, Sajna.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of hard. I just managed to get this one. She's stronger than she looks. It's kind of hard to show that she's actually courageous until we come to some action choices. She comes off as a somewhat weak character, powerless, but she's actually stronger than she looks. And then she does have a favorite destination, but it only exists in her head. Yeah, I struggled a bit with this.
It's okay. It's hard, and really it can be the same thing as what haunts them. It just can be you dribble it out really slowly, and so that it's never in the reader's space. It's more picking up the subtle cues and hints. Like I was asking myself the same thing for one of my characters, and I was like, what is it? And I thought, well, the character, it's like I slowly am realizing her father was abusive, but she idealized him. And that she hasn't even let herself realize he was abusive because she idealized him, as we do as children. And I was like, okay, so that's something that can slowly come out, as the story goes on. So things like that. Again, just asking ourselves, writing, I think, is the art of subtlety. It's ironic because you have, on the one hand, you have to make the reader see everything you're describing. And at the same time, you have to be subtle so that you don't just blurt it all out in their face. And then, in the first 50 pages, and then they have no reason to go on. So subtlety is difficult. So, and I would say, there's a lot of really cool character sketch, like questionnaires online that you can find, and they ask you like a gazillion questions about your character. If you have time and you're interested, I recommend you do one of those or several of them because they'll have different questions. Like, what is your character's relationship with spirituality? Do they have any connection? What do they, how do they, sexuality? What kind of attitudes do they have about these things? What are the attitudes they received from their families and culture? What are the attitudes that they have that are despite their family and culture? Things like all these nuances that build character, like, you know, what are they, when, you know, those nights when you have insomnia and your brain is racing, like what are the thoughts that go through their head? What keeps them up at night? What are they excited about? So the more you can do that, the more I think you'll have a really believable but interesting character that readers are like, wow, I feel like this is a real person and I never want to stop reading them. All right. We're just going to take like a 3-minute break for me to feed cats, and then we will get back here to talk about Yana's piece. All right, so I'll be right back. That. Oh, pickles. You spilled it with your tail. Okay. I'm back. So how long does the effects of that hair treatment supposed to last, Martha? Do you know?
About 8 weeks.
Ooh.
But I'm going to maybe next weekend get a Brazilian / keratin blowout.
Ooh.
So I don't know. We'll see.
You're going the distance.
That lasts 3 months,
Oh
supposedly.
wow.
And
the
I've never.
keratin is like a. It's like
Well, that's a protective outer coat, I think.
that sounds because our hair is made of keratin, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a clear outer coat, I believe, which just protects it.
Yeah.
And
I've had that
yeah.
done once a long time ago.
I've never had it done. I want to try it.
I'm growing out my natural color. I might
Oh,
still
cool.
do some highlights, but I want a base of my natural color because it matches my eye color and my eyebrows and
Mhm.
I don't know, weird pandemic things. Also, I went for a haircut and I was like, yeah, let's cut it a little shorter for the summer. And she hacked like 4 inches off. I was like, oh, we're really going shorter for the summer. Okay. Fortunately, I like it, but I was like, okay, that's happening. It's funny.
I really want Cyndi Lauper's purple hair.
Ooh.
When I see that purpley kind of hair or somebody who's got red hair, so want that.
One of my best friends she's my age or actually older. She has been dyeing her hair purple, like purple it's like her signature thing, and it's so fun. It looks like I've known her for 10 or plus years. And in my mind now, it's like when it like starts to wear off and she waits too long to dye it, I'm like, but you don't look like yourself. You're purple haired.
Is that the one you do the flash?
The flash mobs.
Yeah.
We haven't done a flash mob, of course, in a long time. But
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's my friend Susie.
Right.
Yeah, she's awesome. All right. So, Miss Yana, will you read to us a couple of paragraphs of your liking?
Yes. Let's see, where is it? I think I'll read the first bit. I awaken to darkness. It's black, swirling in and out, swallowing me. There is hardness surrounding me, growing softly into black. Bones. They are hard. They crack as they grow, extending down and above. I'm becoming alive. Joints twist and crinkle into being, stretching and flexing, testing themselves. I feel something snap open and closed. A jaw. I have teeth. Pebbles grind underneath them, their first bite of life. A brain finds its way into a skull. A nose juts out into the void. Cartilage blooms, a bud on a vine of bones. My soul is twisting, sinking into the empty space of my ribs that bend and cradle it. I rise towards the head, finding purchase in the brain, filling it with purpose. 2 holes sink into the skull, awaiting sight, and begin to glow with the ever-changing energy that is me, shooting beams of new beginnings into the dark. Beams from sockets turn into eyes, wispy lashes flutter on eyelids, waiting for light.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's fun to hear it read aloud as well. Okay, who would like to go first? Okay, Hermione.
I'll go first. Okay. Hello, Yana. So I was so excited to read your next piece, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love how confident of a writer you are. It's just wonderful. Your voice is distinct. And I do like how your sentence structure is, because it does support the idea that someone's being born new into the world. And so it's kind of like these like staccato bursts. And so as she grows and develops, maybe then it could evolve to reflect that. And the heat for me was really just this interesting setup you have to see a woman being born over the earth. It makes me think of Adam. Well, instead of a man being born first from the dirt, we have a woman and the plants also attached to her. That's really interesting to me. It makes me wonder about her nature. Is she human? Is she believing she's human when she's not? Is she being led to believe she's human? So I'm really curious about her true nature. She feels a little bit like a deity to me, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, you're tapping into this the born sexy yesterday trope, which is really fun. The movie Blade Runner and Splash are a good example of those tropes.
where you have this naive character being born into a fully developed woman body, which normally panders to the male ego and the male desires. But if you're going to have two females, that's interesting. That's different and fresh. So I'm really curious about how you're going to develop that. And I love that line where she pokes her own breasts and her kind of reaction is playful. I want more of that. I love the rule of three. Anytime you can have a group of three things together, I think she should, poke her breasts and then rub her like hips and like my hair. I'd put a little cluster together.
I like that.
I'm also curious, what is her like kryptonite, so to speak? What is her vulnerability? Also in a piece like this, I think it's really important that you touch on all those, the five senses, but as you know, there's actually more than five senses. But I would say really make sure you hit on all of those. You do kind of talk about the wobbly legs at one point, so balance, the feeling of the hot or cold. Also, maybe do some research onto the different senses that animals have. I thought that would be kind of a cool thing to research. I was looking into it right before class, and there's like one called magnetoception, which is how the animals will like connect to their sense of direction in the Earth's core, something like that. Because what is this thing that's urging her up? What this power, her connection to the Earth and how it ties in with her birth? Explore more into that because it's really super cool what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Okay. Who's gonna go next? Rita?
I can go next. Yeah, this was just such a brilliant piece of writing, I thought. I don't tend to like sci-fi fantasy, but I just was so intrigued by the idea of and the birth. It's just so dramatic and the language is so beautiful. So right off the bat, we've got this observant, brilliant, unusual character that you just like, wow, I want to find out what happens. And she meets people immediately and is off on the journey. So those are so I think it's just so different and unique, and I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get my notes that I wrote too. So I just noted that it's very specific. We love this, I love this new world, and it's just that you have to keep it going. So now you have to kind of keep that standard up. So just kind of keep thinking about the grounding details. And I think I saw a comment in there from maybe Martha about, look at the buildings, look at the clothing, like just kind of think of building on those details. And that this, character is so sharp. And now she's literally going to be developing a personality in front of our eyes, which is part of that excitement of the journey. And so I'm kind of like waiting for that. So I'm hoping that her external actions and what happens to her continually reveals this deepening of personality. And I guess it ties into what Martha was saying about, what is her origins? And does she really, I guess part of the thing that I have is with sci-fi is I tend to start to poke holes instead of getting into the story and having a sense of, suspended disbelief. I'll start to well, why did that happen? Well, I don't get this. And even in the movie, even Harry Potter stuff, I got so irritated because she kept using the device of the invisible cloak and Harry would overhear details. And I was like, stop it. I had to stop reading it because I got so irritated. Or in the movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, everything was so futuristic and everything was so complex, but they were they had drills, they were in hard hats and well, if it's so advanced, why did, those things will really set me out. So but I'm with you on this. I totally got it. Like I said, you can fix that kind of stuff. But if you're going to have somebody like me, I will be the absolute benchmark because anything can just trip me out of a story. And it's easy enough to fix, and I don't want to be tripped out of the story. I want to go with her. So that's just what I would say. It's I when she says she has breasts and she says I've got hair. How does she know that? I have to kind of like, how does she know she's a human? How does she know it? So that's just the kind of stuff that I, hope will be answered in the future, but it's just an amazing piece of work. So thank you.
Thanks, Rita. Sajna, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I really enjoyed this second submission, just like I enjoyed your first one. I thought this was again another delightful, sensory, lyrical, gorgeous piece of writing. I like the protagonist's origin story, right? It looks like she's shooting out from the earth or something. I was less focused on what is going on, but just I'm more focused on the language simply because it's so beautiful. And I feel that's your strength. You're a natural writer, and I just spend all the time just trying to take in the beautiful world that you've built around this protagonist. I did like your first submission a lot more, I'll be honest, simply because it had a lot more elements, right? It had some gorgeous costumes, there's some palace intrigue type vibe. There's a sensation of power, there's some action scenes. So as a fantasy aspiring writer myself, I think your first submission packed in a lot more. And this was more introspective, more interiority. But I know it's a different story and it's getting there. I also like the introduction of a mentor, advisor, potential trainer type of guy, which is good, right? It's something you see in all superhero movies. There's a trainer or an advisor who's going to get the superhero on the path to glory. There's also a kindly woman who's going to scrub the dirty heroine and make her clean. So I think you got all the elements of an interesting new story, and as usual, you did a great job with the language. It was fantastic.
Thanks, Sajna. Natani.
I had the pleasure of kind of weeding through this with her and trying to decide how she was going to do this. So, and then I let it go. So it was really neat to see what you did after conversations and trying to decide if she was going to be born or grown. So that was really cool. I love the roots coming off of her. I love the description of that. I love that they withered away and she touched them and they disintegrate. And that was very it was very Wizard of Oz with the witch and the tights roll back in. Like I love that kind of magic. Let's see. Let's see. You're obviously, the heat is your language. Like your words and your descriptions of things are always just very poetic and prose-like and beautiful. Even when you're describing things that are not pleasant, it's always lovely to read. I love how you described the eyes on her feeling like unwanted touch. I think that is something that's important to put in stories with female protagonists, and that even a look can make you not feel safe, and like she wouldn't even know why she wouldn't feel safe, but those eyes do feel like touch. So that was really well done. I like that the man that she meets and speaks to first is gentle, and I like that because I know the story is going to get violent, and I know the story is going to get like, she's going to have issues with some men. And so I like that this first entrance into, her relationship with men is going to be sweet and safe. I want to know more about the other sensory stuff. I think someone else mentioned that. Like, I want to know how things smell to her, because like kids, everything tastes really strong to them because they have more taste buds than we do, and they're really new and active. And so I want to know how strong flowers smell to her, and how strong someone's BO smells to her, or whatever. Just like she can smell what they ate that day or something like that. Just very intense, new person in a big body feelings. What else did I write? Sensory response, I already said that. I don't know, it's just pretty, and I love everything you do because you're my kiddo, but like I try not to be biased about it. But yeah, I really enjoy this, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And I love that you restarted this and you've made this decision to make this first book about her and her process and how she came to be, and that we can leave the romance and the, you know, meeting the princess and all that stuff for the second book. I think that's a good choice. But
Love
yeah.
it.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Natan. All right. Well, Yana, there's so much heat in this piece for me. I found myself enraptured by the specificity of detail of all of these aspects of her formation. Like, and it goes to show you how specific details are enrapturing when they're done right. And you just really, you have a mastery of that. And it's true, your language, it's imagery. You have this real gift for imagery that is like, you phrase things in a way I feel I haven't heard it before, because that's the hard part as writers. You know, we're trying to tell stories that have been told in one way or another a million times. How do we tell them differently and uniquely? And you're the kind of writer where I almost feel like I would keep reading even if I didn't understand what was happening, because of the imagery is so potent and beautiful and unexpected. It grasps me a lot. And I'm like, oh, I would never have thought to put it that way. And that's just really a gift you have that, you know, to be frank, you can't teach that. People like either have it or they don't. You can teach people to strengthen it, but you have it. And there's such a sense of magic. Like if you're trying to create a fantasy world, a magic world, it's there, boom, in the beginning. And I really, like, there's no doubt for the reader what kind of book they're reading, I feel like, and that's great. And it's an interesting situation. I really love stories in which, you know, you had brought up ones like Splash and things like, where the character is truly in a new world, and they don't know the rules and they don't know the parameters, and they have to learn really fast. And that is always compelling, and also opportunity for conflict and tension, because they're going to get stuff wrong. They're going to misread things. So I really liked all of that. And like, I'm definitely invested in this character and want to know more about her. The biggest thought I had as a potential revision strategy, and I like her being written in the first person from an intimacy standpoint. However, I wondered about the questions that I think Rita was having. Is the character seems to be having information in the moment of her birth, that it seems like if she's only just being born, how would she know what these things are called? So I wondered if you could either do an omniscient voice, which would be in the third person, that's describing it, so it's just from an outside perspective, or it could be looking back. So she's telling the story of her, she's remembering her birth, so to speak, whatever you want to call it, because it did beg the question for me, how does she know what it is? But then there's this voice that speaks to her. So then the other opportunity you could do is have that voice be a little like, you know, let me see if I can give an example. Something like you could even work it into the first sentence or a couple of sentences, like, I wake into darkness, it's black swirling in and out, swallowing me. A voice explains to me what's happening. I mean, these are really horrible words, but you know, this voice in my head tells me narrates or names what is happening to me. And then, like, because we as readers want to know where this information is coming from, because how can she both be born and know things at the same time? So that's really the only jarring thing for me, that where I just kind of went, how do we solve this? And it's totally solvable. You have multiple ways you could go about it. You could have that, whatever that voice that's speaking to her, make it clear from the beginning that it's sort of narrating to her what's happening. You could write it from the omniscient, where it's a sort of all-knowing storyteller who just knows everything, and so we don't really care where it's coming from. Or she could be looking back and telling us about her birth as she remembers it. So those are some suggestions that you can think about and play with. But I think it's a great start. I'm really intrigued. I also loved the idea that she had roots. That just really appealed to me. And that's what made me think of that book I told you about in the chat. Yeah, I won't say more about it because I don't want to ruin it. But all right, that's all I got to say, girl. Your turn.
Well, thank you, all of you, for all of this feedback. This is very helpful. So with this restory, I totally didn't throw everything out, obviously, but I did start from the beginning again, because the stuff before did feel too into it, like we were being thrown into somewhere that was not a start.
Mm.
So I think it needs to be about her origin first. And like I do think what I wrote before is definitely more engaging, as Sanja said, that it was more exciting and it did hold more attention because things were more developed. It automatically you think things are more developed, and I think we need to see her beginning more. So, and the voice was hard. The voice, I had no idea how to make the voice a thing, but I I think the voice needs to be more of a companion
Mhm.
than just a voice. So I think maybe it's
Mhm.
more of an energy than it is
Yeah,
a
you
voice,
give it more robustness.
more
Good friend.
personification. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
think,
you could feel it. She could feel it, its presence with her.
and it can help describe
Yeah.
things like that. I think
Yeah.
I should go with that more.
Mhm.
So that was very helpful. Thank you. And yeah, the world, I have no idea how the world's going to look. I have absolutely no clue what it's going to look like. So that I kind of left it vague for a reason because I didn't want to get hung up on things. I just wanted her to react with people first. I wanted to get that out of the way. I wanted her to just get to the characters so that I could develop those characters more and then deal with the world later.
Yeah.
And focus on just how her personality is going to develop. So I think I'm going to go back and develop more world and have her spend more time outside before we even interact with people. So I need to do more sensory stuff. I need to just add a lot more things in. And
I don't think it's as much as you think, honestly. I think it's like, I agree that the world building can come along, but I don't think, for me, my experience of it was just, if I just understand how she knows what she knows, I'll be a lot more willing to go along for the ride. And so I like the idea of giving robustness to that voice. Yeah, Natanya.
I felt like when I was reading it that it was more like a computer booting up, like
Hmm.
she was information was coming to her and she didn't know where it was coming from or how she
Mm.
knew something, but that eventually when everything's
Mhm.
all warmed up and ready, she'll be this
Mhm.
omnipotent either deity or a deity adjacent character. But that's kind of where I went for it. But I kind of like Rita, like if you don't explain it to if I don't know why in something fantastical, I'm like, but why?
Yeah.
So I tend to fill in like I guess it's this thing, but
Yeah.
the computer
That's-
booting up
And that's okay too. You do want the reader to fill things in to a certain degree. So I like
Yeah.
that you don't over explain. I mean, I really did feel like I went along for the ride, and it was just that one question that was remaining. And it's just a point of view issue, really. Like how do you filter the information? But I don't really feel like you have to, there's a whole drastic amount of extra you need to do, just fleshing it out. And I was as interested, to be honest, as the first version I read. Like I was as interested in the storyline. I would say maybe the only thing is that you might be able to compress the birthing process, for lack of a better word, to just slightly like maybe it goes on just a tiny bit too long. I'm trying to like think where I started to feel like sort of like by the time she's got a full body, I'm like good with what she doesn't know. Maybe it was at that point I wanted like the action to start picking up. That's all. But really, this is going to be such an interesting book. I'm really excited to see what you do next. I really am. All right. Did you get to say everything you wanted to say, or is there more?
I think with one thing, I think I want her origin to be like so otherworldly that only she can understand it and only she can contend with it. So I think with the voice, I think her birth needs to be so personal.
Mm.
And like this voice has to be so her and so personal that she can't. I
Mm.
think I do need to make the voice more person like. I think it needs to
Mhm.
be more
That makes sense.
connected to her in that way. So that was really helpful. That's a lovely revelation. Um, I think I do need to have it be something. I think it needs to be a point that this voice is something and that this purpose is for her and her
Yeah.
alone, that everyone else feels like an other. She
Yeah.
may have a physical body, but she's not the same.
No.
So
Yeah, and I think that comes across. Yeah, Rita?
Have you thought or tried a close third? Point of
Sorry?
view? Like very, very close third point of view. So it just really just change it to she instead of I.
Yeah, I might have to
I don't know
play.
if that'll work. I mean, because I see you're to sacrifice a lot for using the I voice in this story. That's what I kind of foresee, because like I said, she knows so much about this world
Right.
that we're going to expect that level, and maybe that's not going to be the ideal thing. But it's just something to think about, because it's an easy switch. You could write it in the I and just kind of switch some of it and see if that works or not.
Yeah, I that's why I actually think you could get away with omniscient. I normally talk people out of omniscient, but in your case, to have an all-knowing narrator would actually work. But you have to try it and see if it works for you.
Could it be a prologue too?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, some other things, you know, we just have to wait till the very end until you figure that part out. I don't think it's
Yeah. You're going to write your answers. You're going to write your way to the answer is my, you know what I mean? Like, half the time we don't know where our stories are going until we get there. And I really kind of encourage you to like allow some of that freedom in the first draft. Like, don't force it too hard into a hole. Let it breathe and find out where you want to go. And then you can start compressing and tightening as you do the second draft. But too much of that perfectionism or whatever, it's not even perfectionism, but trying to know in advance can slow down the writing process.
You guys all have to keep going. This is my reading for the summer.
I love it. I know, right? And I always encourage people here in classes, if you like someone's work and you want to ask for like a like a trade, you know, like I'll read your pages and you read mine. That's a great way to get feedback from people who's you already know how they give feedback and you have a sense of their presence and stuff. So I'll leave it up to you. Just remember that every time I send out an email for the login, all your emails are in there and you can reach out to each other. And yeah, that's an interesting idea, Tony. So, all right, well, excellent, everybody. Let's set our goals and then pick a 6-minute-ish stretch of work you want to share with us next week, and also maybe a question or a topic for discussion. And if you can send those to me, if you have any, like maybe 2 days, as you know, as early as you want, but maybe no more than 2 days before class, so I can think on them as well. That would be great. All right, Rita, what's your goal for next week?
The same goal as I did last week. I got a lot of ideas though from this particular class about where I need to go. So this is exciting. So I'm just going to kind of keep working on them.
Okay, but articulate your goal again for me, because I don't know that I wrote
Oh,
it down.
I've got basically two ideas that I'm working with, and I'm not sure. I kind of jump around between them. So
Got it. Yeah, Tani.
I'm just gonna keep writing and use these awesome things from today's lesson. Yana and I on our break were like, that was such a good lesson. So
Oh, good.
I think we're going to be answering a lot of questions about our characters, but I really want to write something based on those answers.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing what you write. I know I was kind of sad I didn't give you more of a scene-based prompt because I love what you produce in class. All right, Yana.
I'm going to figure out this voice thing.
Nice. And Martha.
I think I'm going to switch it up and do 100 words on book 2 as my goal, as well as other stuff.
How deep into book 2 are you already?
About 50,000 words.
Oh, nice. You're plugging away.
First draft.
Yes. So, and your point is?
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
And how many books are there, Martha? I think it's 3.
Yeah.
Nice. Love me a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sajna.
I'm just going to be trying to build in some conflict into an existing chapter.
Build in conflict into what chapter?
A chapter already written. So it's
Oh, okay.
an existing chapter.
Okay. Into existing. Okay. Trying to build conflict into existing chapter. Okay. Got it. All right, everybody. I will see you next week. Look forward to hearing your reading and have a great weekend. Ooh, long weekend. I hope you all get one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Yana.
I'll send out the recording later on. Bye.